I wanted to just spend a little time with you guys on crazy pit stories because I know there've been more than a few. Jimmy, of course, is the master raconteur, but just give me a couple of insane stories from the pits that still stay fresh in your mind, either as PTSD or just simply laugh out loud funny.
I was thinking the other day about the fighting, and there was fist fights, and there was rules about the fist fights too. Like if you just went after each other, you were probably looking at like a $10,000 fine. But if you actually exchanged blows and punched each other in the face, it would go up, measurably.
Wow.
But there was also like thousands of cameras on the floor, and they were there for like trade disputes.
Right.
And there was a room in the back where you would go and like with a broker or something and go and ask for angles of a previous moment, and you could see like what had happened and work out a trade. But after a big fight, there would probably be 100 guys in that little room watching the replay of the fight. And then usually the two guys that fought too were like right in the front watching the fight, and the commentary from everybody, like it was just an amazing scene.
It was like
it was surreal.
I have a story specifically just for that.
Yeah.
So in I would say probably a year after the cameras came to the floor, you used to have going back to what Jimmy said, you had to have a trade dispute in order to go to the cameras. Right. And they made that a rule because people were going there watching stuff, and who knows what they were looking for on the cameras. Right. And so you couldn't just go in there without an actual trade dispute. And so I remember one time I'm in the S&P, and the NASDAQ was above us. And so a lot of times you'd hear something going on in the NASDAQ, and you'd look up and you'd be like, okay, like what's happening in there? And, it'd either be a big order or an argument, whatever. But if it got loud there, we would pay attention to it because we would want to know what was going on. Is it an order that's going to spill over to us, or is it just, something that's going on? And one time there was a big roar, and I remember I was just walking outside of the pit, and then you look to the NASDAQ and you had to walk up the steps, and I could just see like everyone kind of like swarming. And I'm like, dude, like what is going on up there? Right. And by the time I started walking up there, I couldn't even get up there to see it because there were so many crowds of people.
Wow.
And there was a girl by the name of Elena who sadly recently passed. She was younger than me. And she was beautiful. She was just a fierce, just totally like, she was just a pit girl, right? If you said something to her, she'd tell you to go fuck yourself. You know what I mean? And she was just awesome. I loved her. And somebody called her, a bad word, right? A word you don't call a woman.
Right.
So supposedly the story was, and I saw it, I saw the tape. She said, "What'd you say?" And he said like this to her again. And this guy's probably 6'2", and she grabbed him and just popped him 2-3 times. And you just see him standing there. And the thing is, she's hammering him right in the face,
like a maple tree falling over.
Immediately, once we knew that was the story, everyone all of a sudden had a trade dispute, and they had to shut it down that day. Fortunately, I was one of the first people in there to be able to see it. But those types of things happen. The rules kind of changed a little bit after that. They weren't letting us in there too easily. Like you only could have 2 people in there at a time. Remember how that was, Jimmy? How eventually they just wouldn't even they wouldn't let us in there.
That girl was scary too. I traded next to her in the NASDAQ pit, and I mean, I would have rather fought the guys in that pit than fought that girl. She was fucking crazy.
Her father was a cop.
Beautiful too, which was the more disturbing part. Was that she'd run you and embarrass you.
Super high heels.
Yeah. Holy shit.
Yeah. It's hard to believe that she's gone. I mean, we've lost so many people over the years from the pit. It's crazy. She died this year.
I've seen it was just the worst human behavior, because it's like, you're in this like pit where brokers it's like throwing, steaks to starving dogs, and like they're going to fight each other over those steaks every day. And, just seeing like I saw a guy rip a guy's toupee off his head. And
was it Wayne? Was it Wayne? Was it Wayne?
No.
They pulled it off?
There was like a $50,000 bounty.
You remember how much money that kept going up?
He actually had to hire a clerk to stand next to him to protect his toupee because of the bounty got so high.
He was the biggest Euro-dollar options broker. And I remember when a piece of gum was thrown into his wig.
I mean, yeah, and his wigs were like $25,000 a pop.
It was
50
big
of the wigs.
Wig, man.
Yeah, a giant afro.
I'm going to stop these guys because I know, they could go forever and it's just so much fun. And Trace, I'm sorry. I know you probably have, unless you have like something really interesting. I want to save your time for actual market calls because I'd love to know what you're doing. But, you were saying a lot of the worst things about the market, but also, Tony just posted something I thought was really good, which is that, there was also big camaraderie on the floor. And by the way, Tony's Twitter feed, Tracy's Twitter feed, Jimmy's Twitter feed are absolute must. You should just put them on there all the time and just follow them. They post amazingly great stuff, all of them, in all sorts of different ways. I thought it was kind of just interesting in terms of all this stuff. But I want to save the last couple of minutes just for the markets, and I'm going to give Tracy the floor because she's been sort of patient waiting for the guys. Did you ever get abused when you were on the floor, or you were that kind?
Yeah, I was just a trade desk manager, so I wasn't an actual trader. So I kind of was away from the fray at my desk. So
and you were away from the beasts, away from all the beasts, all the Michigas. Great.